Using sources in your paper. There are 3 ways you can incorporate outside sources in your paper. The first is quoting. This means that you will use the source's words exactly as they appear in the original text, inside quotation marks, of course. Next, there's paraphrasing. When you paraphrase, you put the source's words into your own words. Lastly, there's summarizing, where you give an explanation of a point the source makes. This paragraph quotes the same source twice, once at the beginning and another toward the end. Let's take a look. In his book Complex TV, The Poetics of Contemporary Television Storytelling, Jason Mittell argues that to call something complex is to highlight its nuance, suggesting that it presents a vision of the world that avoids being reductive or artificially simplistic, but that grows richer through sustained engagement and consideration. In other words, complex television is an umbrella term under which are organized those shows which break with the traditional methods of creating narrative on television. These are not programs in which the story world resets at the start of each new episode, as is the case with many sitcoms or procedurals like Law & Order. Rather, the narratives on complex shows continue throughout episodes and seasons, and those narratives unfold in a way which is marked by greater variations in serial form, a more self-conscious mode of storytelling. The first quote is introduced formally by saying, in this book, the author says this. This is one way to use a direct quote. It's a particularly good idea if you're going to quote the same source multiple times over the course of the paper. In the last sentence, the author of the paragraph has done something different. Here, they weaved Mittell's words into the sentence they wrote. The quotation marks let you know which words are Mittell's, but when you read the sentence, it sounds like one complete, independent phrase. Both uses of quotations are good options. Just be sure to use the quotation marks correctly and cite your sources. The author of this paragraph has used MLA in-text citations, but you should use whatever citation method your professor prefers. Paraphrasing. Here's a snippet from the end of the paragraph we saw on the previous slide. The direct quote is clearly delineated by the quotation marks before the word marked and after the word storytelling. Now, let's take a quick look at what a version of this might look like if we paraphrase the quote instead of quoting it directly. Rather, the narratives on complex shows continue throughout episodes and seasons, and those narratives unfold in a way which features a greater range of forms in the sequence of episodes and is more aware of itself. What we've done here is rephrase the author's words in our own version, but we still give him credit. That's what the in-text citation is for. You must cite your source even when you are not using a direct quote. This lets the reader know that this is not an entirely original idea on your part. We got this point and are using it in our overall argument thanks to the ideas of this other person. When you summarize something, you're giving a very basic explanation of the main points made by someone else, rather than making those points in your own words, as you would when you were paraphrasing. Let's take a look at an example. In his book Complex TV, The Poetics of Contemporary Television Storytelling, Jason Mittell argues that a television show's complexity is directly tied to seriality. Shows whose plot lines carry over from one episode to the next can be defined as complex, and shows whose worlds reset at the start of each episode cannot. As you can see, this is a very brief summary. Something like this would probably be the start of a longer paragraph. But you can see here how you're not really making a point or rephrasing someone else's point, but just explaining someone else's idea or claim. A summary like this can be particularly useful if you're going to cite the source multiple times in your paper, because it gives the reader some helpful context. For more information and further guidance, click the link below.